Hi everyone, my name is Ramiro Albrieu. I am leading a global initiative called The Future of Work in the Global South, funded by the IDRC from Canada and implemented by CPEC, a think tank based in Buenos Aires. And now we are going to have this very stimulating, I hope, conversation on the future of work in Latin America with these distinguished panelists that I will present as they speak. We are going to be discussing the future of work in our region. The future of work as a topic is very hot right now. Now every government, every firm, every worker is thinking about what to do, how to be prepared for this wave of new technologies, related to artificial intelligence, cloud computing, 3D printing, and a related family of technologies. So we are all thinking about how to manufacture a different future, now. And I think that if you look at the global scene, global arena, you can find two big stories about the future of work. The first one has to do with, in a way, takes a rather pessimistic view, saying that robots are going to take control, that these AI-powered machines will surpass our cognitive capabilities, and that we are going to enter into a world without jobs. This idea, this is a very pessimistic view, I think based on science fiction movies and so on. But then we have this totally different story saying that we have been in the same situation in the past, and we have been able to manage to confront problems, to take advantage of technologies, to accelerate growth, to increase productivity, to create better jobs. During the first industrial revolution, with the steam engine, with the second industrial revolution, with electricity, and with the third industrial revolution, with information and communication technologies. So in a way, we have these two contrasting stories about technology and the future of work. But then we need to remember that we are in Latin America. And maybe none of these stories match our real challenges. We are the land of missed opportunities. I mean, maybe our problem, maybe in the future, is that it's not that robots will take control or that robots will compete with humans, but that maybe we will not have robots in our region. I'm talking about lacks in the use of new technologies. So Latin America has a story, a different history that I think that feeds different stories about the future of work. So that's why it is time to talk with these researchers, to experts, to try to bring some collective intelligence around the technology, skills, labor markets, but always trying to focus on our own context in Latin America at this history of missed opportunities that that has to do with our region. So let me start by discussing technological change in our region. In order to do that, I will talk to Joao Ferraz, who is a professor at the economics department at the Universidad Federal de Rio de Janeiro. So Joao has been working on the penetration of new technologies in our region. So Joao, my question for you is, what's the outlook for Latin America in terms of these new digital technologies, and what are the obstacles for the implementation of these technologies in our region? Joao?
Thank you, Ramiro, and thank you, the organizers. Thank you, Concordia, for opening the space to discuss the issue of future of work, which is related not only to the society, but each one of us. And I'm eager to hear from Irene and Matias, more specialists on the issue. My take here is first that we are discussing things that are not settled yet. So the process of digitalization in firms is an emerging issue. Lots of changes, not only in Latin America but elsewhere. So please be aware that we are doing research while things are moving. So our certainty, our level of certainty about these issues, we should take care in being very assertive. We have done research, direct research, survey-based research to industrial firms since 2017 in Brazil, in Argentina, in Ghana, Vietnam, and Thailand, and in Brazil in 2 rounds of research. So more than 4,000 firms were interviewed. Not representative, but it's a panel that may suggest what is happening in these countries. I'm going to concentrate more in Brazil and Argentina. This research was done with the support of the Brazilian Industrial Board, with the IADP, Intal from Buenos Aires, and from UNIDO. Now, the question that we have from the beginning is, departing from the proposition that there is coexistence of different generations of digital technologies. The CAD has been around for 50 years, although generations change. The CAD of 50 years is not the same as the latest CAD, just like smartphones and things. But we should ask questions not only about the most advanced, but also which generation they are using. Yeah. So departing from this, we ask firms, what are they currently using, and what are they they expect to use in the 5 to 10 years time, and how they are preparing today to reach that projected future. Yeah. So we are sort of anchoring their expectations in their readiness, current readiness levels. We also ask firms about different issues, profiles of labor force, whether digitalization is important for environmental sustainability and so on. But I'm going to concentrate on the level of usage. And the question is, do firms differ? Is progress coming up for all, or is a divide in the making? Yeah. So this is the basic question that we have. And what have we found? And here I'm going to concentrate in Brazil and Argentina. And inspired by Abramovich, who studying countries, especially the US and other countries, divided countries or attitudes of progress, of forging ahead, so those leaders, catching up those that are coming behind, and lagging behind those that are standing backwards. So with these 3 types of divisions, Argentina and Brazil, lagging behind in Argentina, 2/3 of the firms. In Brazil, 50%. And the leaders, 3 or 4% of leaders in Argentina, and something like 12% in Brazil. So you see, the main find that we have is relatively to more advanced technologies, considering the future and considering how they're preparing themselves, our situation is not brilliant. Yeah, the majority of the firms are lagging behind. And if we ask them specifically about what generation, the least in 2000, in 5 to 10 years time, something like 1/3 to 40% of the firms are expecting to remain in the least advanced generation. So it is a large proportion of firms that do not still see. So just to end this brief introduction, then we can discuss the implications, is who is who, yeah? And basically what we find is that the larger the size, the more R&D, the more training, and the more export-oriented or engaged firms, the higher the probability of being on a higher digitalization level. And what is even more important is that most advanced firms confirm that digitalization is very important for competitiveness and for environmental sustainability, efficiency in the use of water, circular economy, and so on. Now, what we found is that the less advanced, the majority of the answers is don't know. And the don't know in our questionnaire has an analytical content. It shows that they ignore, they lack the knowledge of the benefits of what digitalization can bring about, which is very serious. It's not only the usage in itself, but actually they don't know that the world may be falling on their heads. To finalize, if we think that this is not nice, and it's not nice scenery, guarding the relative positions, the US Census did an exercise in 2018, and they found 85,000 firms, and they found more or less the same profile. Yeah, the larger firms, the more high-tech sectors, the more dynamic a firm is, the more digitalization, and vice versa. So there is this divide in the making in Latin America, clearly, and it's not, you know, and we are a divided region, but also there are signs of this divide in the making elsewhere. I stop here.
Okay, thanks, Joao. So you are talking about these lacks in adoption, but also the idea that there's no a single firm, no, but many stories, many absorbed capabilities, we can say, within the firms to understand these ideas, to get this flow of ideas that are out there and bring into more productivity and so on. So I will bring this idea of inequality as well as
no, and the first issue is knowledge about the challenge.
Yeah. So in many of the discussions about the future of work, we talk about this, about technology and technological change and what's going on inside firms. But at the end of the day, we ended up talking about skills. The idea that skills this time are really a game changer in terms of being part of this group of, you know, the ones that can absorb the new ideas, the new technologies, and so on. So let me go to Matias. Matias Busso is principal economist at Inter-American Development Bank. So Matias has been also working several decades now, we can say, on skills and with a focus on developing countries and particularly in Latin America. So let me ask you, Matias, about these 21st century skills. First, what are they? And second, how's Latin America regarding the accumulation of these type of skills? Matias?
So thank you, Ramiro, for the invitation, and the organizers too for the invitation. And so I have a more sobering view. I think Latin America has very pressing issues regarding skills that go far and beyond what people tend to think about, you know, skills of the 21st century. So let me take a step back and briefly mention, you know, that we tend to think of skills as of two types. There are, you know, general skills that are skills for life. They tend to increase productivity in a wide range of occupations and industries and so on. And they also tend to have, so they are skills that are very transferable across occupations and industries and firms. and they also tend to have very large externalities. So they matter for work, but they also matter for the functioning of a society more general. And these are socio-emotional skills, the ability to identify your own emotions and other people's emotions, and that then translates into communication skills, teamwork, empathy is also an important one. So cognitive skills also, memory, executive functions, and academic skills, knowledge of facts, of procedures and concepts, and these are literacy skills, numeracy skills, digital skills, and so on. And so then then you have these general skills, and on the other hand you have these specific skills that they tend to increase productivity in a narrow range of occupations. And so you can classify those specific skills in that are related to an occupation that can be applied to different industries, or to skills that are specific to an industry that can be applied to different firms within the same industry, or firm level skills. And so general skills have higher transferability, large externalities, and this should be the focus of basic education, and they should be a primary concern of public policy. Specific skills tend to be privately provided and acquired, and they have a private return, and therefore the type of interventions that we think for promoting those skills are different. And so to me, it is impossible, and I give very little credibility to reports that try to predict what are the skills that are going to be in demand in 30, 40 years. It's very difficult to predict with precision. And so, but we do have the literature that suggests some hints. So, and when we think of that, it helps, when we think of the interaction between technology and skills, it helps thinking about the complementarity or substitutability between technology and labor, but not at the skill or even at the occupation level, but at the tasks level. And there are some tasks that are done in certain occupations that are repetitive, and therefore they are more susceptible to be carried out by technology, and therefore robots and machines can substitute away those tasks. And then some tasks that are non-repetitive, they are less susceptible to be codified by a computer, and therefore less likely to be automated. And the only thing that I feel comfortable predicting is that in the future, technological change will lead to an increase in the demand of jobs that create technology, or that use technology, that are a complement to technology. And then there will be a relative increase in demand of workers that perform tasks that are non-repetitive. And this will increase demand of certain skills, critical thinking, abstract thinking, creativity, socio-emotional skills, but also empathy. And so, jobs that are in the care sector, nurses and doctors and primary cares and educators and so on, are less likely to be substituted away too, because those are tasks that they tend to do tasks that are less likely to be codified. So how is Latin America in terms of skills? First, I think the region has done tremendous effort in the last 30 years. On average, we have increased spending in education from 2% in 1990, 2% of GDP in 1990 to about 6% today, which is what most developed countries spend in education. And this increase in education has fueled a very large increase in access and in coverage. So 100% of our children attend primary school, and most of them finish primary school. About 75% enter secondary school. And so this has been, for a region that was lagging behind much more 30 years ago, these are really good progress. Now, we know very little about socio-emotional skills. We have measures that are comparable across countries, so I can say very little about that, unfortunately. And that's, I think, one line of policy that we can talk about later. Now, despite this increase in access, the quality of academic skills, which are the ones that we can measure, among those general skills, the academic skills are ones that we can measure better. The quality is very low. It's very low. A third of the students only 1/3 of students can do basic math by age 9. Only 50% of students can read a basic text by age 9. And 50% of our students do not finish secondary school on time. So, we can start thinking about what are going to be the skills for the 21st century, but we have very pressing problems, basic problems with basic education that we need to solve now. And not only that, we have a problem in the level of quality when we compare our children with children in developed countries, but even in countries that have similar levels of development. We also have very large inequalities within Latin America, like within regions. A kid that is born, a child that is born in a low-income household has very large gaps in socio-emotional skills compared to a kid that is born in a high-income household. And this is before they enter formal education. This is before kindergarten. And these gaps, when we observe them in academic skills during primary school and secondary school, they are large. And so, it translates into something like, if you observe two children of the same age in the same grade level, on average, the one born to a low-income household will have 2 years less of effective schooling than the one born to a high-income household. And these gaps kind of like continue over time, and we see them when they enter the labor market. So I think, in terms of skills, we know very little in terms of the skills that will matter, socio-emotional skills and general skills. And from what we know that they are low and very unequally distributed. I'll stop here and we can talk about policy later on.
Okay, thanks, Matias. Very interesting. I think that in a way you are pointing to some structural problem. Even I mean, we can start discussing the type of skills that we need, but the question maybe is that we are learning, because otherwise, I mean, you stress the idea of general skills. You need to know math. You need to know some basic. In a way, we don't know about the future, but future-ready skills have to do with being good at this, right? At being able to move, to understand some foundational issues. And in a way, you are saying we are failing there. Maybe we have more schooling, but learning is still a challenge in our region. So I will take some of your comments to introduce Irene Brambilla, who is a professor of economics at the University of La Plata and researcher at CONICET. That you, Irene, have been working on this idea of flexible, we can say, tasks, or the idea of that we used to live in a world with labor markets full of routine tasks, and routine-based jobs, and this is changing, and maybe more flexibility is maybe a way to go to better jobs, or to concentrate on different tasks. So I was wondering if you can enlighten us in a way about the Latin American challenges regarding labor markets. Maybe we talk a lot about skills that have to do with some future, maybe some distant future, but now we have a labor market with its own problems, its own characteristics. So I think that we can learn more from you about labor markets in Latin America now. So Irene.
So hello everyone, and thanks for the invitation. Let me start by saying that yes, of course, we can be afraid that technology might replace some jobs, but that doesn't mean that we don't want firms to invest in technology. I mean, of course, we want firms to make investments in innovation, and because that increases their productivity, it leads to growth. So technology and robots are definitely a good thing. What we need to figure out is how to deal with that, right? So one of the first barriers is that firms that want to invest in technology, they might find that there are human capital barriers. Not only that, in Latin America, I mean, on one side you have that technology is expensive. But also you have that there could be barriers from human capital. So there are many studies that show that when firms invest in technology and particularly in ICT, whether that leads to increases in productivity, it hinges on complementarities in the labor force. Like at the management level, there has to be like good organizational capacities and management practices. It's not just simply go and buy a machine. There has to be a structure that is compatible with that. And that, of course, depends on human capital. At a lower level, not at the managerial level, but at a lower level in the organizational structure, you also need human capital in order to work in complement with technology. And this goes back to the point of whether technology replaces human workers. I mean, what we expect or what we aspire to is to have workers that will work in complement with technology. And now, who are the workers that can work in complement with technology? And that is what Matias was talking about. So workers that perform repetitive tasks, that are employed in occupations that mean that they have to do the same thing in a way that is codifiable, in a way that can be done by a machine because it has a precise set of instructions. Those are the workers that do not work in complement with technology, but instead are replaced by technology. The workers that can increase a firm productivity and that are not in danger of being replaced are those that, well, of course, the IT technicians, but leaving that aside, that workers that have creativity, that need to solve problems, that need interpersonal skills. There are many tasks that are flexible and that they need a human input. Now, those tasks correlate with education and with skills on the job training and also formal education. So formal education is essential in this sense. There is a correlation between education and employment in flexible occupations. Now, I totally share Matias' view on how lagging behind in education Latin America is, but I would also like to add some other facts, which are that it has been improving. I mean, not at a fast rate and not at the rate that can put us nowhere near where we should be. But if we look at decades ago, graduation rates from school have improved a lot. And that actually translates into a different occupational structure for people of different ages. So if you take different cohorts of workers and you compute how many of them are employed in flexible occupations, I have done that in some research projects. And what I find is that workers in Latin America, in several countries in Latin America, workers in the age group 30 to 40 years old are the ones that are more likely to be employed in occupations that require flexibility. So those are at the peak of flexibility and at the peak of being in the lowest danger of being replaced by technology, the highest probability of working in complement with technology. What happens with younger workers? Well, younger workers still don't have enough experience, so it's natural that they will perform more repetitive tasks because they don't have decision-making power, or they are not solving problems so much. They are carrying out orders. Of course, I'm generalizing, but on average, younger workers workers younger than 30, they are performing more repetitive tasks, but they are moving along their career path towards flexibility. So they are in a position of danger at the beginning, but with good prospects of growing in the future. Now, the older generations, people past 40 years old, those are not, I mean, the older the worker, the less likely that person is to be employed in a flexible occupation. So flexibility is decreasing in age, not for one particular person, but for the different cohorts of workers that have been exposed to different education levels. So cohorts are becoming more and more educated, and that means they are employed in more flexible occupations. So if you look at the movie, it's not so bad as the picture. However, that said, there is, of course, plenty of scope in Latin America to improve skills and to improve formal education, and that necessarily needs to lead to performing more flexible occupations. And that is not only a good thing for the worker, it's a good thing in general, because in the general equilibrium of the economy, firms that find that there's a capable labor force that can work in complement of technology are more likely to invest and to produce more output and to grow. So there's an externality between education and technology adoption. There's also one more thing, which is about the educational systems in Latin America. So on one hand, they are very much lagging behind in education itself, and they are also lagging behind in adoption of technology themselves. And that has become very clear during the pandemic. I mean, education in Latin America has been, it has been shown that there's no technology adoption in the education sector itself, that educators are not comfortable working with technology. And so there's a huge area there to improve both education and education in technology for students and for education workers.
Thanks, Irene. I think that I like this, your outlook for these risks of competing with machines and so on. I wonder if this concentration of risks in the, I don't know, in the people in their 40s or 50s, maybe it has to do with these mature sectors, right? Like big industries, maybe right, where robots are more pervasive, you know, maybe for the whole economy it's more ICTs. So maybe also the type of technology can make a difference there. Maybe we can discuss that, not today, in I don't know, in a different day. So now there are 10 minutes left. So I want you to imagine that you are in front of a policymaker, and that this policymaker, him or her, or that she's just trying to change history, trying to really take the opportunity of these technologies to accelerate growth, improve productivity, and create better jobs. So imagine that you have 3 minutes for saying, okay, you need to focus on this, this, and this. So Joao, 3 minutes.
Well, first point is that we have to confirm, we have to give the alert to private and public decision makers that the potential that a divide in the making is on the table. So do we want our societies to increase differences that we are living on or not? And the issue is that these technologies are windows of opportunity to decrease the differences. If we let as it is, like you mentioned in the beginning, Ramiro, things will move on that, you know, the better, the haves and the have-nots, those that have the power, those that do not have the power will not profit from. Now, can public and private institutions and the third sector engage into actions that is possible to revert this process? Yes, and I think that the technologies do constitute a window of opportunity. But I think windows of opportunity are not sufficient. I think that we have to open doors of opportunities, not jump into a window. It's actually widening the doors for access. So, and the access means, and there are examples, and I'm talking here about industrial firms and the private sector, you know, inducing the adoption of more advanced technologies by the enterprise. There are examples, pilot examples in Brazil, examples in Germany, examples everywhere of good initiatives that with consultancy and with engagement and with firms participating in the financing of this process, that we can have more firms enjoying the benefits. of these technologies. But it takes courage, and it takes, above all, political priority by the private and the public sector to increase the relative importance of being concerned with, acting upon the digitalization. And of course, a requirement for that is to put on an even higher scale that knowledge matters, knowledge about technologies, training the labor force, using this technology, just like Irene was mentioning, using these technologies to be a tool for learning. Yeah. So, you know, opportunities are there. It depends very much on the mindset of our policymakers, public and private, and the third sector. The opportunities are there. Doors are still open, but I don't know for how long, because once this thing is settled, it's going to become more, it's becoming harder for those lagging behind to jump up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joao. Matias?
So let's solve in 3 minutes the whole problem of skill development in Latin America. So, I mean, the first thing that I would tell anyone is that there's no silver bullet, and any you know, real skill development program requires sustained effort through several administrations. Now, if you press me and tell me, okay, where do you put your first chips? I will do probably 3 things. First is work on teacher quality at all levels, based, you know, preschool, early childhood, secondary school, higher education. Teacher quality is key. The teacher we know that it's a key determinant of skill quality. And this requires, you know, making the career teacher more attractive to recruit more talent into the profession. It requires a better incentive structure to reward good practices and penalize bad teaching practices. It requires rethinking the system of professional development that in the region is very lacking. And some countries like Colombia, Peru, they have done partially some of these things in the last 10 years. Second thing that I would do is to improve information systems. And this goes back to my point that we don't know anything about how we are doing in terms of socio-emotional skills, but, you know, having regular standardized system at different levels of throughout the education, including higher education. Colombia has, you know, an exit exam for for university and technical school graduates. Having a system of or an information system that tests students regularly, comparably, so that everyone knows, administrators, you know, public officials, voters, families, how we are doing in terms of skill production is key. And again, countries have done this. Chile have done it. Colombia has done it too. And third, you know, I think remediation programs are key. In this respect, you know, I think what Irene was mentioning about teachers being very unfamiliar with technology, I 100% agree with that. That has to do with, you know, my first point, that we need better teachers. But also, I think technology itself is a remediation tool. I mean, we have evidence from many settings in developing countries that technology can teach at the right level to the individual student. Therefore, they can make classrooms more homogeneous and therefore can facilitate teaching for teachers. So, you know, there's obviously much more to talk about, and I can keep going if I have time, but I think I used my 3 minutes already.
Yes. So, Irene?
Okay, so so first of all, let me start by saying that I think education needs to be improved in Latin America in all fronts, in all subjects. But I want to talk specifically about what Matias was saying in his point 3, that which I would say as it's necessary to have an integration with technology in the classroom, or not necessarily in the classroom, in the physical classroom, but in primary and secondary education, there needs to be an use of technology. Teachers don't know how to work with technology. Students don't know how to work with technology. It is a remediation tool, as Matias was saying. 40 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, people were saying something in the lines of people that don't know how to use a computer will be the illiterate of the future. Now that future has arrived. I mean, today, people that don't know how to use the computer are illiterate. And unfortunately, in Latin America, there are a lot of people that don't know how to use a computer. I mean, yes, they can check Facebook, they can use social networks, and that's it. And that includes millions of people, not just the very, very underprivileged, a lot of people. And somehow we are not grasping the seriousness of that. And there's a lot of people that are even educated people that laugh it off, and they just say, they give excuses, and they say, oh, I'm not a good friend of technology. And well, that person might have already a good occupation, whatnot. That spills over to other people, and it's a bad example. It's time we take more seriously that it's not fun to be computer illiterate. Teachers cannot be computer illiterate, but they are, most of them are. So we need to take that more seriously. The education in technology itself, I mean, education in general is important, but education in technology is also important, and we need to transmit that to students. And in that sense, just giving them computers to take home to just simply use it to play games, that has proved to be insufficient. They need to be able to use the computer in productive ways and in ways that are interconnected with their formal education. They need math homework, to do math homework in the computer. They need to do Spanish homework in the computer, history homework in the computer, and so on. So it needs to be integrated, not to have only half an hour or 1 hour of a special subject on the use of computers. It needs to be integrated in everyday education, in all subjects.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I like this idea of discriminating. I mean, of talking about access. It's not the same as talking about use. In a way, we have these views and saying, if I give you a computer, you have an access to this technology, but then you don't know what to do and why you are using this computer. So we are out of time now. So thanks in Concordia, and thanks all the participants. I think that we have been talking about a lot of issues that have to do with the future of work, a lot of challenges ahead for the region. I think that there is a call to action, at least, saying that we need to try to reform things. We need to try to move governments, to move firms, to move workers. And because if we are just keeping in the way we are going to miss the opportunity. So again, thanks everyone, and see you in the future.